Hello YouTube, RJ. Today we're going to take a look at my SimpliSafe base station, Gen 2. Now in a previous video I modified a Gen 2 door sensor for my father who wasn't getting enough range out to his garage. After that also I upgraded to the SimpliSafe Gen 2 system, and I was having the same issue with sensors at my garage, so I went ahead and did the mod with the external antenna. Worked just as good as for me as it did my dad, as I've had many comments from viewers who said that it worked wonderful for them. A number of them asked me why they couldn't do the same thing with a SimpliSafe base station, and I said, well, I don't want to do it on mine because it's still under warranty, and everything was working good with mine at the time. Those two sensors in the garage were all I needed modified. Thing that happened to me though is, one, this is going out of warranty. Warranty's almost up, and two, I added some cameras, external cameras, and this sends a wake up call to wake them up when I want to view them. And the problem is sometimes it doesn't receive the signal. And it depends on the weather and time of day. And in certain scenarios, it fails to work. And so that's quite aggravating. So I've decided to, well, I'll put an external antenna on the cameras. But when I looked at the cameras, they're hermetically sealed to keep all the moisture and everything out and condensation. So I was going to destroy one of those before I got into them to put an antenna. So that kind of ruled that out. So we fall back to, what about modifying this base station? So today that's what I'm going to do. Now, I haven't done this. I don't know what I'm doing. If you decide to follow along with me and do the same thing to yours, you're doing it on your own risk. SimpliSafe's not going to warranty this after you modified it. The first thing I've done is I've unplugged the power and brought the module in here. And of course, it immediately started complaining about being on backup power, and I knew I couldn't record with it saying that. So I went ahead and removed the small screw here and turned clockwise and removed this. And as you can see here, I pulled the 4 batteries out to shut it up. So now we're going to start actually moving in and seeing. There's 4 screws under here. I'm assuming these 4 screws here, 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 and here are what we need to remove. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those, and I'll come right back and see what we find. Okay, I've got the 4 screws out, and this appears to just lift right off. Got two battery leads under there, and we got a little button thing here that we need to pull up and out. And now I see 4 more screws, and I'm not sure if those are holding it in. It kind of looks like they hold the board in, but so maybe I can turn and remove this. Doesn't feel like it. Doesn't feel like it. Yeah. So I'm going to go to the next step. I'm going to say, let's go ahead and take these screws out. So let me get these loose and I'll be right back. Okay, I pulled those screws out. Now I do want to point out one thing. It appears all 8 of these screws so far have been the same, except for the battery cover screw, which is get a good look at it here. It's a shoulder bolt with fine thread. The rest are a coarser thread and appear to be the same. Doesn't look like it matters. So, okay, that lifted off, pulled out. The board is kind of loose though. Okay, play with it a little. We got some plugs here. Okay, got a couple plugs in here. Let me see if I can get a good shot of that. See these plugs we're going to have to release? Little JST plugs. Wiggle them and pull them out. They're 2 different pin counts, so, and they're index, so it doesn't look like you could get them in the wrong one. And then you've got a ribbon cable here that you'll have to pull the little black. Normally, you'll pull the little black shoulder around it. On the ends, you're going to pull it up like that. It doesn't come up a lot, comes up an 1/8 of an inch or so, and then this cable should come out, and there's a dot here and a dot there. It looks like it's marked. So make sure you have a dot like me. If you don't, put your own little dot on there. Make sure you get it in the right way. Okay. So we can see that the blue side of the ribbon cable, it's blue. The blue side goes to the outer edge of the circuit board when you put it in. So just keep all that in mind. So here's the circuit board. Looks like it's got a PIC chip on it. It's going to be the brains. RF's going to be in here. Some kind of mechanism here. What is this? Reset button? No. This kind of looks like, to me, if I can get a good shot, is you've got some ears here and slots. something rotates. Something rotates. Looks like maybe there's an inner here that rotates, and this must be the lock that holds it. You push a pin. I bet I didn't have to take all this apart. I bet we could have pushed in here, rotated, and pulled this off. Yeah, I bet we could. I bet that's exactly how this works. Let's see if I can rotate this. You look at your slots here. I've got to rotate. The outer part looks like rotates. Well, I don't know. Yeah, the outer rotates clockwise looking down this direction while the inner rotates this way. So let me get this thing locked open. Let's see if I can turn this. Or try to anyway. Yep, it locked, turned, and snapped. So what we just took apart, we didn't even need to. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. So basically all we did, we didn't need to do. In fact, don't do what I did. Get you a small something and push it on that pin and then rotate the outer while holding the base. So let me go ahead and try to put this back together. Okay, we're back. I've assembled it all back together. So all you really need to do is take the one battery bolt out, take the batteries out, and then this cover has a hole on it. It's opposite of the SimpliSafe. And if you push in, you release the latch here. When you release that latch, it allows you to turn this. Let's see, I'm not exactly sure which way it turns though. Okay, looking down, you're going to turn it counterclockwise to release. And once it releases, you can just pull this off. What do we got here? We got a Q-cell something, got a SIM card in it. And here's our antenna right here. So you've got a fairly short little antenna. I wonder if I can get that board out with that, just that screw right there. Let's see what we can do here. I'm going to go ahead and throw my static strap on. Probably should have already done that, but even though I'm on a static bench and probably perfectly fine, let's just be super safe. This is going to be our communication transceiver board right here. Quite sure. Trying to figure how you get that out. Maybe I can't get it out without it being totally apart. The antenna seems to be the problem. Wondering if I can unsolder the antenna with it in there. Let me get my soldering iron set up. We'll heat this, see if we pull the antenna out with it in and then get the board out. So let me try this. Like I said, I don't know what I'm doing. This is just all experimental. So let's see where we end up. I'll be back in just a few minutes. Okay, let's see what we can do here. I got the iron warmed up. See if I can get the antenna kick loose enough that we can get that out. Oh yeah. So there's the antenna out. Yeah, then you can get the board right out. And here's your board. And there's your antenna connection. And we got to decide what we want to do about an antenna and how we're going to get it out of here. And we don't have a lot of extra space in here to be working with. So, you know, how do we get an antenna out of this thing? You know, I don't know if maybe we could put a hole here and bring an antenna straight out, which would hit down in here. We'd have to drill a hole. Let me think about it. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. It took a little while. Think about it. Had other projects to do, and I'm back. And after doing a lot of thinking about it, here's what I've come up with. I'm going to try to do. I am going to try this little path the antenna runs up. I'm going to try drilling a hole right in the end there. And I'm probably wrong, but I think I might be able to take some copper wire, some of this stiff copper wire I have. It's just a little bit less than 1 millimeter, and make a new antenna that comes up and feeds out one of the holes here. And I'm going to have to little coordination here because I'm going to have to figure out where this goes on and how it turns to line it up in the right place. But if I can do that, I'm going to go with a full wave antenna for this frequency, which will take me from this one here that I took off, which is just a little over 4 inches. It's actually 3 3/4 here, and then you got a little run in there, but it's a little over 4 inches, which is going to be a small antenna. We're going to go to, I calculate wavelength out, and it looks like a 13-inch on the money is going to fall out just about perfect. So that's what we're going to do with our copper. We're going to make a 13-inch one and try to make all this work. But I got to get that hole first in here. So let me take a second and drill that. I'll be right back. Okay, that went real easy. You can see my little hole right here. I used a 1/16 drill bit, which is a little over 1 millimeter. This should fit in here, hopefully perfectly fine. It does. Fantastic. So now we got to make up our antenna, get our bend, and I'm just going to use this as a pattern. This little unit here is a pattern to get my bend. So we want to be about that long, no longer. And that means we want to bend right about here. So let's get our bend there. There's our little 90-degree bend to get into the board. Handle it good. It's pretty close. Okay. Now I'm going to take and slide this wire right up and through my little hole like this. And I'm not going to put my little bend until I'm all done because I got to get through holes up there. I don't know how this is going to play out. So let's go ahead and get our board screwed down, because I will solder it just from the front. Will be perfectly fine. Now you might wonder, before I fired up the spectrum analyzer and I looked at what kind of signal on an antenna I was receiving, and then that gave me a reference to look at whether I was improving with the new antenna before. And you're probably wondering, or you might be wondering, how are you going to know if this improves things? Well, that's not going to be too hard, because while my issues were intermittent with the cameras, so maybe it'll work and actually didn't improve anything. I find out later it's still giving me problems. We had to move this from where we had it before to the laundry room to be close to the back door to be able to get out to the camera at the garage. It would not work at all in the old spot where it was at, no matter what we did. So one of the little checks I can do is if this thing will trigger the camera, the rear camera on the garage from the old spot it was, I know that it's dramatically improved. And so that will be one test. That's kind of one of the tests we'll do right off the bat. This is going to go in and get soldered. Now what I'm going to do is, before I do that, straighten her out a little bit here. I'm going to take and put a wee bit of flux on the wire. Oops, that was way more than a little bit. I want just a little bit of flux to make sure we get a good connection. And then we're going to get this wire in where it belongs. Hopefully it'll fit through the hole. I didn't even think of that. Oh yeah, no problem. Oops. In fact, it cleared it out so much the wire bounced right back out. Come on, get a hold of it, RJ. There we are. But the big challenge is going to be figuring out how this all works. And it appears this goes on like this. So somewhere over here is going to be, so I'm going to guess somewhere about here. And we'll see if we can make it work. By golly, I think I did pretty good on the first try right there. Now there's our antenna. So there you go. The big question is going to be, will this thing work? And I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I got to go hook this up and see if it works at all. I'll come back. Okay, I'm back. I tried my little experiment moving to the area we couldn't get it to work before, and I couldn't trigger the camera. Part of that might be the metal roof, and when you move inside of the home father, the angle to the top of the garage might be the metal roof, but that leaves me with no proof that this has improved anything, or it's just not empirical information. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go at this a little different. I'm going to go ahead, now that we know how to get this apart, it's not that difficult. I'm going to pop this thing apart. I'm going to remove this antenna and put the original back on. I am going to make me a spot right here on the bench, put me a small antenna on my spectrum analyzer, see what kind of signal I'm getting out of it, what it's receiving, so I can get a metric to work with, a baseline. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a longer antenna. Do the same thing we just did, but add some length to it. And what I want to do is see what kind of signal I get then. Did it go up? Did it go down? What happened? And then I can start trimming that antenna and see what happens and see if we find a peak. And if we get a peak, we'll go with that, and we'll see. We know we got a better signal. So we know it will help in some instances. Whether it'll fix my problem or not, maybe not, but we then can test. But at least we know that the antenna is putting out a better signal. So we're not just guessing. I don't like to guess. This is a lab. It's not a game show. Let me set up for that. Let me get this apart, put the old antenna on, get my little test set up. I'll come back, show you what kind of signal we clean up the bench a little, show you what kind of signal we're getting on the original antenna. Then we'll make our new antenna, see what kind of signal we get from there, and we'll work that way. So, okay, we're back. Let me get this out of your way a little bit here. Okay, maybe that'll look better. Okay, what I've got is, if you look here, I've got the spectrum analyzer set up. We're looking at around 433, 430, which seems to be the frequency for this little rascal. And what I'm going to do is, I've got my spectrum analyzer set on max hold. So what you're seeing here that doesn't seem to be changing is because it's holding the highest peaks it's seen at the frequencies. You can see it is updating a little. So it's right around a minus 100 dB. And what we're going to do is, I'm going to trigger this thing, and it takes a number of times of doing this, but as I trigger it, sooner or later we'll capture it and we'll get a reading. And I'll do it a couple times to make sure we get the very highest reading we can. I've got if you look over here, I've got the station. I've got it marked off here where I know right where to put it. I'm aiming the antennas on this side towards the antenna of the spectrum analyzer. So we should be able to get a decent reading here. So let me see if I can trigger an outside camera and we can get a reading and figure out just how much signal we're picking up. So here we go. Everything will stay referenced. This antenna and everything will stay referenced here. The only thing we'll change is the antenna here. So any changes is going to be because of the antenna here. So let's trigger it. There we go. We got her. Let's do a couple more times, see if we get anything higher. See that it updated, caught it again. Still about the same signal strength. So we're going to go with that. So what we're going to go with is, it's about 433.430. This is the original antenna. Okay, and we got minus 69 dBm. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video. Not for you, it'll just jump right over, but I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to build a new antenna. I'm going to go, instead of 13 inches, I'm going to go about 16 inches this time to make sure we've got plenty. And then what I'm going to do is, I might go 18 inches. Then we're going to see what signal we can get off of that 18 inches. And then we're going to cut an inch off, and we're going to see if it went up or went down. And we're going to work in to find a range of antenna and see just how good a signal we can get. Right now we know the base antenna in this configuration will get 69.69 dBm. So let's see if we can improve that. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, I'm back. As you could probably see, maybe, I don't know, we've got our extra long antenna on here, and we're ready to do the test. So here's what I'm going to do. Let me run over, blank it out so all the averaging is gone, and go to max hold. And we'll let it cycle and find the noise floor, the average noise floor. And then I will try to shoot a signal to it. There you go. Got it on the first try. Look at that. Okay, minus 63.59. So we've already picked up a number of dBm. Try to hit it a couple more times to get a very peak. Make sure we're getting the highest reading. Now that's a little higher. Probably should have waited a minute before I wrote it down. Okay, so we definitely improved the signal with a longer antenna. We're now looking at 6224 minus 6224 dBm. Let's try cutting off. Let's cut an inch off. So we're going to go in and clear it again. Blank all. Type of trace back to max hold. Let it average out. Give it a minute. Do a couple sweeps and average out the noise floor. Okay, let's see if we can pick up a signal here. Bingo, nailed it. Looks like we shouldn't have shortened it maybe. Let me try getting another shot at it. Make sure we get the peak reading. Now there's 65. It's looking a little better. There's 60, so that's better. Kind of looks like we improved it a little bit. Well, more than a little bit. Why don't we cut it a little bit more? We won't go an inch this time. What if we do half an inch? So let's take about half an inch off this time. So we're going to go in and blank it. Go back to max hold. Give it a minute to average the noise level. And let's try it. See if I can get a signal. There we go. Let's try again. We want to get the peak signal we can get. Oh, that's even better. 5906. That improved. We're getting minus 59.06. So let's take another little half off. And let's try again. Okay, once she averages out a couple sweeps. All right, let's see if we can catch it. Nope. Wait a second, try again. There we go. Wait a second, try again. Let's see, we want to capture the very peak signal we can get. Looks like got a little worse from where we were. Not much, but some. So we're probably pretty close to an optimum length. What kind of difference did we make? Say we stop right there and we go right there and we use minus 60.94. We're almost 9 dBm, right? So figure close to 9 dBm increase in signal. Okay. Remember that every 3 dBm increase is twice the signal received. So you're 4 times, you're 8 times the signal. Unless I'm doing that wrong, and I'm sure y'all will let me know. But I mean, 3 dBm, and then 3 dBm on top of that's double that. 3 dBm on top of that is double that. So you're basically talking, twice the power. Doubling again is 4 times the power. Doubling again is 8 times the power. So an 8x signal to a receiver at a given distance. So that's pretty substantial. Now, will that help me? Will that solve my problem? Probably the metal roof is stopping me. This does show that we've got a better signal. So I am going to put just a slight little bend on the top of this thing, small as I can. I want to shorten it any more than I have to, just to protect eyes. And then I'm going to go try it. Like I said, I'm guessing I have something else causing my problem, and we probably aren't going to pull it off. But you know what? I'll come back in a few minutes. I'll let you know. I'll also get this apart and figure out how long an antenna I made so I can tell you guys. So I'll be back. Hang in. Okay, the bad news is that didn't make it where I could put my station where I'd like to have it. It seems to be the metal roof is the problem. But the system's working great with the new antenna. The length I came up with is you're just about exactly 15 inches. So cut your wire about 15 inches, bend it the same amount as the original antenna here. Put your bend in the same length. So make the overall length 15 inches. Bend this the same amount and put it in, you'll be dead on the money. Yes, there is some signal gain to be. Whether it'll fix problems for you, I don't know. Is it worth it? It depends. If you think you're on the edge of doing what you want to do, this will probably put you over it very easily. If it's the sensors, probably easier just to put the antenna on the sensors. I would recommend that. If that's all you have is a couple door sensors giving you trouble. My case with the cameras, it's not so simple. So I tried this. So maybe you've got a camera that you can't quite make work and you don't have a metal roof that's blocking you, but you just can't quite make it through the walls or whatever to it. This may work for you. I can't guarantee you. I can't guarantee you won't mess up your unit. So just keep that in mind. That's on you. You're taking the responsibility. But there you go. That's the end of the video. Appreciate you watching it with me. Hope you'll hit the like and help me out. And most certainly hope to see you in the next video.